All right, guys. So Bill Maher's new rules segment from this week went kind of viral because, in very classic Bill Maher fashion, he morphed his show into smug time with Bill Maher. So I'm going to try my best to put my bias aside here and break down his commentary. I'll tell you the parts where I really disagree with him. I'll also try to find areas of agreement. I don't know if that will be possible, but nonetheless, we'll move forward and try to do it. So here he is. The title of this new rule segment is Cheer Up. So he's effectively going to try to make the argument like, yeah, Biden's approval rating numbers are low, but they shouldn't be because everything is just hunky-dory. And if you don't see that, it's because you're a moron. You know this is what he's always done. I think I'm intelligent and the American people are dumb, okay? Like that's the classic Bill Maher. He's been making this point for literally decades. So anyway, let's dive into it and we'll break it down.
And finally, new rule, being obsessed with your mental health is bad for your mental health. I've been thinking a lot lately about a puzzle many are struggling with. Why are Biden's approval ratings so low when things are generally pretty good? Now, of course, there are problems. America's a big place, but wages are rising, unemployment is negligible, the stock market is soaring. We somehow brushed off both the Trump presidency and the pandemic. Yes, inflation persists for a lot of things, but, you know, an actual good, nice-sized TV now costs $60. Who gets credit for that?
Did you notice even the audience was not like laughing at that one? I think he thought it'd be a laughter break, and it just wasn't. Oh. All right, let's start breaking this down. So, and I'll play more of it, don't worry. But look, to the idea, I actually am of the belief that I would much rather live now than live in the year 1900 or 1925 or 1870. And I think most people probably believe, especially if you're part of a minority group, right? I mean, you don't have to go back that far for it to be like literal hell on earth, right? So I don't take for granted the internet and TV and air conditioning and heat and all the modern amenities that make things a lot more comfortable. But let's be clear, those things are not going to deliver meaning and purpose and peace in your life. And yeah, maybe they deliver happiness, but only if we're making a distinction between happiness and peace. Happiness being a fleeting thing that could come and go, like a dog's emotions when they're really happy when you walk in the door, but then after 5 minutes, they're right back to, whatever, sniffing their own asshole and not being all that happy, right? They can deliver something like a fleeting happiness, of course. I like just as much as anybody else on a hot summer night, laying in bed with the AC pumping at 65 degrees, watching my favorite TV show. I love all that. But, you do that every night, it's not going to deliver meaning or meaning or purpose or peace. So it's again, very smug of Bill Maher. We have cheap TVs. Everything is glorious. Like, okay, I'd rather live in a place with TVs than without TVs. Yes, but it's sort of missing the big picture, isn't it? And of course, he brushed over a lot of things there, but we'll dive into more of it in a second.
Wages are rising, unemployment is negligible, the stock market is soaring. We somehow brushed off both the Trump presidency and the pandemic. Yes, inflation persists for a lot of things, but, an actual good, nice-sized TV now costs $60. Who gets credit for that? We've got next-day shipping, stuffed crust pizza, legal weed, GPS, and porn on the phone. Cheer the fuck up.
Again, all those things, sure, they're comforting. Sure, they make things more convenient, right? Like, that's the way to describe it. Back in the day, before porn on your phone, you had to go find a dirty Playboy magazine that's wet laying underneath a rock in the backyard that your friend showed you when you guys were 13, right? Like, yes, these things, the stuffed crust pizza, delicious. I love stuffed crust pizza as much as the next person. None of this gives meaning, purpose, and peace to your life. None of this is like a long-term, hey, my life matters type thing. And he's missing that. And in today's day and age, I think people are suffering from a crisis of meaning, a crisis of purpose, right? Not to mention that he's colossally overstating how healthy the country is economically. And I mean, and he made the argument like, well, unemployment is down and the stock market is soaring. Yeah, the stock market is a good indicator of how the top 10% of Americans are faring, not the bottom 90%. Unemployment being low, sure, that's a good thing, but how many of those jobs are gig economy jobs? How many people are making nowhere near enough money and they're struggling to make rent? They're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to pay the light bill. I sincerely and genuinely don't think he understands or realizes or recognizes how tough it is out there for so many people. Why? Because he's the smug liberal elite in the Hollywood Hills. And, you know, he doesn't have the same experience as like a working person and seeing working people in real time. He's rubbing elbows with some of the richest douchebags on the planet.
Stop acting like life in America in 2024 is unbearable. Biden's ratings are in the toilet, not because he's doing such a bad job, but because a lot of Americans like to live with their head in the toilet.
You're just an idiot for not seeing how great things are, okay? Like, we get it, Bill. You're a hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. You're a Biden defender. So therefore, when the good guys are in charge, everything's good, okay? And even if it wasn't good by the traditional metrics, he'd be like, well, they're trying to make it better, but the Republicans are stopping them, okay? Like, I know everything he's going to say before he fucking says it, right? What Bill Maher won't acknowledge, a 2023 survey conducted by payroll.org highlighted that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. A 6% increase from the previous year. By the way, there are other numbers out there. The low number I saw was 60% are living paycheck to paycheck. What about this? Nearly a quarter of U.S. adults sometimes don't get enough to eat. Nearly a quarter. This article's from 2023. The low number I was able to find was 12%, which means like 1 out of every 10 Americans right now doesn't have enough to eat. 41% of Americans are suffering from medical debt. Medical bills are the number one cause of bankruptcy. Millions of people are uninsured. The housing market is out of control. We've had an increase in homelessness. We just saw the pandemic-era social safety net expansion programs. They went away. And so now people are struggling in the middle and at the bottom of the economic ladder. He doesn't address any of this stuff because, the stock market went up and the unemployment rate went down, so if you're not feeling okay, maybe that's on you. The system is fine, okay? This is a traditionally conservative belief. Status quo defense is a traditionally conservative belief. And this is what's happened with Bill Maher as he's gotten older. He's morphed into more, I'm the enlightened centrist, okay? That's who I am, okay? If you haven't noticed, my Bill Maher impression requires a lot of, okay? Because that's how I view it. That's the stuff he says. Anyway, let's continue. I don't know how much more of this I can get through because it's already absolutely insufferable. Basically, like, if you feel like things aren't great, that's on you. That's what he's saying. It's not the system. It's not the rules in place. It's not how rigged the whole thing is. No, that's on you. It's your problem.
Look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers. Almost a third of American adults have reported a depression diagnosis at some point in their life. And while depression is, of course, a very real thing, it's also true that earlier generations never suffered from the expectation that you're supposed to feel good all the time.
Okay. Look, one possible theory as to why depression numbers are higher today than they were in the past is that just back in the day, it was massively underreported because it wasn't socially acceptable to be like, yes, I'm depressed. I'm clinically depressed. By the same token, back in the day, the percentage of the population that was LGBTQ, that number was way lower. Now, is that because it was actually way lower, or was it because there was a stigma and people didn't feel comfortable coming out and saying, yes, I'm LGBTQ, right? So it's very possible that these numbers are not accurate and that there's always been a similar amount of depressed people. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, yeah, people are depressed. More people are depressed. They're being honest with it. They're saying it. And it's because things are actually kind of fucked up. We don't have a sense of community. We don't have a sense of meaning, like perhaps at certain times in the past we may have. And now with a hyper-individualistic, atomized society under capitalism, this is the result, right? This is the result. But no, it must be things are great and you're just a fucking idiot, right? And you're self-loathing or something like that.
Are on antidepressants, and that doesn't include the ones who steal them from their kids. And the kids? The newest TikTok challenge is self-diagnosis of mental problems. Because what's more of a hotbed of mental health than TikTok? In 2022, the CDC released the results of a survey on teen mental health, and over 40% said they feel persistently sad or hopeless. And antidepressant use among young males is rapidly rising, unlike their dicks. Now, without a doubt, antidepressants can be life-saving for those who need them, but here's the thing. About 3/4 of Americans who are on them haven't been diagnosed with depression at all. They just want a magic pill. We spend $6 billion a year on drug ads, all featuring someone emerging from darkness to play with a dog. And all with the message, you're a sad sack of shit, now take this. Also, and don't get mad at me, I'm just citing statistics, but the people who really shouldn't be that bummed out but are acting like it anyway are exactly who you think, white women. An estimated 35% of whom are on antidepressants, although in their defense, have you seen the prices at Lululemon? These gals are so distraught they can barely keep their appointment with the Vietnamese girl who does their nails. Calling Dr. TikTok. But every bad feeling isn't a disease, and Americans really need to stop pathologizing everything. No one's just sad anymore. They're clinically depressed. They don't merely worry, they have chronic anxiety. Do you like things neat and organized? That's OCD. You're bummed when it's cold out? Seasonal depression.
Okay, this is the guy who rails against right-wingers when they do climate science denial. Right? He's like, you fucking idiots, you're not even looking at the studies and the data and the information, okay? Be smarter, okay? But then on this topic, all of a sudden, he sounds like the science denier. Like, what exactly is the claim here, Bill? What exactly is the claim? Because he puts the caveat of like, yeah, some people are depressed and, you know, they need the pills or whatever. But of course, the core of his argument is, we're massively overprescribing it, and a lot of these people, or maybe even most of these people, don't need it. Well, who the fuck are you to make that pronouncement sitting in your comfy air-conditioned studio? You didn't diagnose these people. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It all stems from his, like, anti-modern medicine beliefs. He's a big, like, alternative medicine guy. You know, he'd be like, go out in the sun a little bit and exercise and eat right, and like, that should solve all your problems. One of those types. And it's like, frankly, I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about. Would that help with some percentage of people? Sure. But this guy's got no concept of what depression really is and how it functions and how devastating it is to people. And to attack the idea of just taking an SSRI, well, you know, I don't know about you guys. I've certainly had conversations with people who were depressed, and then they got on the right SSRI, and then they felt way better. And then that allowed them to then take the next step of, I'm going to go outside more, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to eat right. Whereas if they didn't do that, they couldn't get their fucking ass out of bed. So now who's the science denier, Bill? Jesus Christ. And again, look, the core of his argument here is young people, it's the get off my lawn shit again. Young people are just self-obsessed and narcissistic and addicted to TikTok and overdramatic and overstating their depression and their feelings, and they're being coddled. And really, it's time to just, quote, cheer the fuck up, because actually everything is amazing. That's what his argument is.
Being alone, separation anxiety. Bored, that's ADHD. Shy, social anxiety disorder. Why? Because you don't want to go to the office party? Nobody does.
Oh, that is rich. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was just an article that came out. I think it was Hollywood Reporter. And apparently Bill Maher fired his agent and his entire agency, CAA, one of the top talent agencies. He fired them because he wasn't personally invited to their Oscars after party. And he was so outraged by that and so pissed off about it, he fired all of them. And now he's talking about the office party and like nobody wants to go to that. Apparently you do. Apparently, how long have you been in fucking Hollywood? How old are you? He's almost 70 years old. And he's still a little fucking malignant troll social climber. Like, Jesus Christ, man. What the fuck? Apparently you do care about getting invited to that office party. I don't know. I can't. Look, every time we even pause the video, look at his smug-ass face. This is the face of somebody who thinks they fucking know everything and is never willing to say, I don't know. Right? And this is supposed to be a comedy show. I gotta tell you, not really that funny. When you're messaging, I'm gonna stick it to the man of poor, depressed young people. Final point. Final point. Put everything I said so far in this segment aside. Right? Put everything I said in this segment aside. Joe Biden is arming and funding a genocide in Gaza. There are 40,000 dead Palestinians, 92% of them civilians, 15,000 dead children. They're doing a total medieval siege. No food, no fuel, no water, no electricity. We have babies starving to death. We have people eating grass and drinking seawater to try and survive. A huge chunk of the population is bordering on famine. People are already dying from starvation. The correct reaction to that is depression and sadness and anger and righteous indignation. That's the correct response to that. So no, we're not going to cheer the fuck up as our government arms and funds a genocide. That would be preposterous. That would be incredibly self-serving, narcissistic, ego-driven. That's putting on the blinders and just being a bad person. And that's effectively what he's arguing for here. Pretend like everything's wonderful. Sweep everything under the rug that's not an economic indicator that shows that things are lovely. Let me just berate you and chastise you into saying everything's wonderful under Joe Biden, and if there's any problems, just look in the mirror. Look, I don't want to overstate it. In some instances, do people have problems that are coming from themselves that they need to clean up and fix on their? Sure. But the idea, you take every systemic issue and you swat it aside and you berate people for not being happy enough? Like, who the fuck are you, bro? Well, I know who you are. You're a multimillionaire living in the Hollywood Hills, and you clearly have lost touch. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.